Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Denver, Colorado. I'm so glad you could join me today. I finally have my paper pumpkin alternatives for June using the June 2021 Expressions in Color Paper Pumpkin Kit. Let's just get started. Here is the box that the paper pumpkin came in this time, and it's called Expressions in Color June 2021. This kit is designed to make these 9 cards, and I have to say they are beautiful. This one is a note card size card, and these two are full-size cards. And you can see here it makes absolutely stunningly beautiful cards the way they've designed them. They've also on the back come up with a couple of their own alternatives that they show here. It's a gift bag, a thanks card. This one is a happy birthday card. And the coordinating colors are Bumblebee, Evening Evergreen, Freesia, Fresh Freesia, and Polished Pink. Now, in addition to that, I did find that the Blackberry Bliss worked with this, and probably the Soft Succulent works with it as well. And I ended up making 6 cards this time. I could have kept going. I still have a tremendous amount of material left. Let me show you some of the component pieces that come. This is a vellum piece, and it's got this beautiful flower spray here, and then it says thanks in very large letters, and there are 3 sheets of this one, I believe. And you can see after I made my 6 cards, I still have 2 sheets left. Then we have these pieces, which in the cards that they put together go together like this, creating bouquets up and down with a message across the top. And I think this also comes in 3 sheets. Now, I've only used 1 to do all of my cards. Let's see, this time you got 2 Stampin' Spots. You got the Evening Evergreen and Bumblebee, and I managed to use Evening Evergreen. I used Fresh Freesia. I used the Bumblebee, and I used Bermuda Bay, Granny Apple Green, Shaded Spruce, Fresh Freesia, and Blackberry Bliss in all of mine. And you can see the Blackberry Bliss works pretty well with that particular color. And I know it's a lot of ink, but I kind of went a little crazy on this one. This was so much fun to work on. There are so many pieces here, and you can do so much with it. Let's see, I did use a little bit of the ephemera pack for the artistic group, and then this is the stamp set that is used with this paper pumpkin kit, and it says, "You are amazing, congratulations, sending hugs, many," and then it's got 4 different floral little pieces, a little round one, a flower, this pretty flower, and this little berry bunch here, and then this, which you see in the designer series paper that coordinates with this. Thanks, and then for everything. And I used everything except many for everything, and that was it, because I used everything else in this stamp set. Let's see what else came with this. These beautiful iridescent adhesive back sequins, and of course your dimensionals and your glue dots, which I ended up using quite a few of the glue dots this time. Your envelopes all are plain white, so I couldn't steal anything from that to do cards. And the card bases are this pretty purple with the Freesia, and then the polished pink, and then there's this card base, which is Evening Evergreen. Then the last card base that they used, and I have maybe used enough of mine that I don't have a bunch left, but what they did was the card base is in Bumblebee. There's these labels that came with it, as well as a page of very tiny white labels. These are lined in evening evergreen. There is another piece that comes with this, and I may have used all of mine up, and it's a vellum card front piece with white little leaves like embossed on it. I'll show you in the design how I used mine. This is my card number 1, and what I did was I took this one card front and I ended up cutting out, let's see, how did I do that? Anyway, I put the card front on my trimmer and I trimmed from corner to corner and from corner to corner. And as the result, then I got these pieces, and there's another piece here, but I used it, I think, in a card. This is also a panel that was included in this, and the only one I don't seem to be able to lay my hands on right now is the vellum one, but you'll see it in the designs. In fact, there it is. So on this one, I used all 3 of the flowers, and I used the long piece. I thought it was more interesting rather than having the whole piece on there. Then this, and I'll bring it up so you can see, is this white on vellum pattern, which is just beautiful. I got my piece a little warped here, this piece of fresh Freesia is 4 by 5 1/4. Then this was one of those diagonal pieces, then a few of each of the leaves, and that was the other thing that came, was that green cording in evening evergreen. I put a little double bow on mine, and then I used some of the sequins that came in it, and then because I can't help myself, I used a couple of the evening evergreen from the In Color Jewels rhinestone pack, and they're in now, and I'm just using them everywhere. Then I looked at the labels here, and they were all just too stark white. So I cut a little piece of vellum. It's actually quite a bit of spare vellum on this thing, and I just cut a piece out and put my Sending Hugs on this one. And then on the inside, I used a strip of fresh Freesia. I did put another white layer here, a little piece of that vellum, pattern vellum, and a few of the pink leaves. And so that is my card number 1. Card number 2 is this one, done in basically the same colors. And I put a Freesia, fresh Freesia layer, 4 by 5 1/4, then white, 3 3/4 by 5. And then I cut a piece, and I honestly don't remember. Let's see, I cut a piece of the vellum 4 inches by 2 inches, 4 inches by 2 inches, and then I put it on a fresh Freesia piece that is also 4 inches by 2 inches. I used some of the leaves. I didn't use any of the pink ones in this one. And I put Blackberry Bliss because I thought that made it kind of interesting and picked up a different color. Then I stamped my thanks in the Blackberry Bliss, I think it was, on a little piece of this vellum with a pattern and backed it in the Freesia. And then on the inside, I put a few more of those green leaves, and I put a piece of vellum under this one, and then kind of just fussy cut around it, a sequin, and then all of the colors from the front. That is my card number 2. Then I took this card, and this one was supposed to be this piece on this evening evergreen, which I kind of liked, but then I thought, You know, in the pattern paper that goes with this, and here's a quick look here of all of the pattern papers. They use a lot of this Bermuda Bay, and they use this shaded spruce. So I took some of my color inspiration from this paper. And so what I did was I stamped this flower stamp set here. I stamped a little bit of this, and I did that in the evening evergreen. Then I did some of these little sprigs in Bermuda Bay, and then I used this stamp and I put it in the Bermuda Bay and added several pieces on here. Then I went back and I did this flower here in Versamark with some gold powder. And in fact, the effect that I got was, and I wanted it, that a little bit of that powder stuck around some of the flowers, and I went ahead and heat set it so that some of that gold actually came in there. And then I used our champagne gold rhinestones on this. And on this one, I did use the label that they supplied. Congratulations on that one. And then on the inside, I repeated all of that stamping, put a piece of Bermuda Bay back here, and used a little bit of the twine on the inside of that card. And that is my card number 3. Then I sort of started going a little bit up the reservation here. And, oh well, we've got one more that's more closely aligned to what they did. I took that big, beautiful flower and I cut it in half. And I squared off the corner and tucked it on this piece of evening evergreen, put my thanks down here at the bottom, added a few of the evening evergreen rhinestones here and a few of those sequins there, and just left it super simple. On the inside, I took the other piece of evening evergreen for this card base, and I used it and then offset a piece of white to do the sentiment. So very simple, probably the closest, one of the closest to what they did in the kit. So that is my card number 4. Then I took the Bumblebee background and I cut all of my card fronts in half, because in all cases, the back side of the card was in color. So I figured I could make a card using this, and I could make a card using this. The same thing with this one, and the same thing with the Bumblebee. I ended up using the Bumblebee, it was Bumblebee on both sides, so I cut them in half and then used them for card fronts. So this one, since it coordinated with that beautiful paper, I went artistry in ink. I went ahead and used my contour dies and cut out one that had a little bit of the gold showing through, and coordinated, I thought, pretty well with the Bumblebee. I used a strip of that pattern paper with the vellum, and then I used a strip of that much darker, this piece of paper here, and it's got some granny apple looking kind of color along one end. And I decided I was just going to mess with a little pattern paper here, and so, and I tucked it, I had a few extra leaves, so I tucked them in on this side. I stamped in my thanks. I used a little bit of twine. I just couldn't stop on this one. And then on the inside, there's another piece of that Bumblebee, which is the other side of this card base. Another piece of this strip of paper along here, and then my white border. And so that is my card number 5. Card number 6, I really went a little nuts. So the other half of this flower I put here at the top, and I used a plain piece of vellum, and I stamped using this stamp in the set, and I stamped all over this piece of vellum. And I did it in Bumblebee, I did it in, and then I added little bits of Bermuda Bay, and I added bits of Evening Evergreen, And then I used Versamark and my blender pen to add some of the gold accents here. And then on my piece of Bumblebee that's underneath to add added depth, I stamped some of this stamp on there as well to give that background coming through the vellum. Then I took a strip of plain vellum from my stash and put the You Are Amazing stamp on here, added a few leaves. I have cut tons of leaves out of this Evening Evergreen Shimmer vellum. This is the one that's most unlike the kit in that I used a lot of other things, but I just couldn't stop on this thing adding pieces. And so I ended up putting some of those Evening Evergreen Shimmer on there, some from the ephemera pack, and then did my stamping both on the vellum and the Bumblebee on the bottom. And then on the inside, I did the same. I made a small strip of the vellum with some of that stamping on it and a little bit of gold, some of those leaves, and some of the ephemera, a gold ephemera leaf that I had left over. So, and this piece is 4 by 5 1/4. This is 3 3/4 by 5. All of my initial layering pieces, with the exception of these two, were the 4 by 5 1/4, and I think these ended up being 3 3/4 by 5. So standard size kind of mix, but I just love the way they came out. I couldn't be more pleased. These are cards that I think are just stunningly beautiful. So that is my project for the day. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, well, I'd love to be your demonstrator. Or you could join my team. Let's see. This is the month of June, and my prize for the month is the Art Gallery Bundle Stamps and Die Set. And all you have to do to put yourself in my drawing is put an order of any size on my store, lbedinger.stampinup.net, and or you can get to it through my blog, www.ingenuity.com. And I thought I would do something a little different. This time, if you put an order on my store, you get put in the big drawing, but I'm going to pick 6 people, and I'm going to send one of each of these cards to 6 people that place an order between now and month end on my store. So that's it for me. I will be back with more cards, more projects, and more tips. Bye.